Okay, I'm going to summarize the first 5 chapters of To Kill a Mockingbird. So, in chapter 1, we are introduced to Scout Finch. Scout is a girl who is 6 years old. She's kind of a tomboy, and in the first couple of pages, she really just goes over her whole family history and how long her family has lived in Maycomb, their town, and what her family is like. So, again, she is 6 years old. She has an older brother whose name is Jeremy, but goes by the nickname Jem. He is 10 years old, and they live with their father, whose name is Atticus. Atticus is a really good father. They enjoy him, and he is a lawyer in town and is very well respected amongst the community. They're a poor family, however, because the story takes place during the Great Depression, which was during the 1930s. Scout, as you can see, is wears overalls. She has short hair. She really likes playing with her brother, and this is what her brother looks like. Again, he's 10. As they're playing one day, they hear something next door, and it happens to be a young boy. This boy is named Dill Harris. Dill stays with his aunt in the summer, and he loves to play with them. He's very adventurous, very curious. They like to act out plays, and he finds out about their mysterious neighbor, Boo Radley. Now, nobody really knows anything about Boo Radley other than the fact that he stayed inside for the last 15 years and that he got in some trouble when he was younger. His father is very strict and makes sure that he never leaves the house. Now, in chapter 1, Boo Radley's father dies, and everybody thinks that Boo will finally come out. Remember, he's been inside for 15 years. However, his older brother, Boo's older brother, Nathan, comes back and takes over the father's role, ensuring that Boo Radley does not go outside. People in the town often think that Boo comes out at night and kills people's plants and kills their pets and looks in people's windows and scratches on their screen doors. But there's really no proof of that. Um, Jem also gives a description to Dill and says that Boo is 6.5 feet tall and he eats raw animals and he has a big scar on his face. But there's no proof of that either, because again, no one has seen Boo Radley in 15 years. So, Dill becomes obsessed with Boo Radley, and all he wants to do is find out as much as possible about this mysterious man. So, in chapter 1, Dill dares Jem to go over and just touch the Radley house. Originally, the dare was for him to go over and knock on the door, but Jem was kind of afraid of doing that. They changed the dare that he just has to go touch the house, and Jem is described as never having declined a dare. And so he runs over, he touches the house. They run back to the Finch house, as fast as possible. And what they look back at the house, and the last thing that they notice is that there's a flick of a blind from inside of the house, meaning that somebody was probably watching them do that. Now, chapter 2 starts with Scout's first day of school. On her first day of school, she really doesn't like it at all. Her teacher, Miss Caroline, it's her first day of ever teaching. She's very inexperienced, and she doesn't have a teaching style that matches with Scout's personality. Scout already knows how to read and write, which Miss Caroline is not happy about. And later in the chapter, Scout also tries to explain the town to Miss Caroline, but she doesn't do it very successfully. She does this by Miss Caroline keeps offering this kid named Walter a quarter for his lunch, but Walter is a Cunningham, and he's really, really poor, but Cunninghams don't take anything they can't pay back. So Scout stands up and she says, "Miss Caroline, you're shaming him." And Miss Caroline gets very flustered. This child thinks she knows more than her and gets her in trouble. Scout is very upset by this and blames Walter for getting her in trouble. And so she goes and she beats Walter Cunningham up. Jem catches her doing this and then invites Walter to come over for lunch. Again, Walter is very poor. Go to school as much as he would like because he has to work on his family farm a lot. So he doesn't always get to go to a full year of school. However, he works a job and he works on his family farm. And so he's kind of mature for his age because he spends most of his time with adults. So when he comes over for lunch, Atticus spends a lot of time talking to him about his farm and about the crops and because he doesn't really have a normal childhood experience. Now, as they're having lunch, Walter, who never gets any sweets, because remember, he's really poor, pours syrup all over his food. And Scout freaks out and she's like, "What are you doing?" Calpurnia, who is the family cook, and she's like totally like a mother figure. Calpurnia gets so mad at Scout, and she's like, how dare you shame somebody who's come into your house? Let him do what he wants. And you're not high and mighty. You're not better than him. So how dare you shame him? You always have to be polite to your company. Doesn't matter how much better your family is or how wealthier your family is. If you're unkind to other people, you are low class. So lunch ends, all the kids go back to school, and once they get back to school, Scout is in her classroom, and she says the filthiest human being she's ever seen walks in. His name is Burris Ewell. Now, the Ewells are like the Cunninghams, very poor and don't go to school very often. But however, the Ewells, they say, live like trash. Or they are humans, but they live like animals. They live out in the dump. They never go to school. Their father spends all of his money on alcohol, and they just live off of the generosity of other people. Now, Burris has lice in his hair, and Miss Caroline freaks out and screams at him, and Burris calls her a bad name and then ends up leaving. And that is the end of chapter 2. In chapter 3, chapter 3, Scout continues school. Oh, I'm sorry, that was the end of chapter 3. In chapter 4, Scout continues going to school, but she doesn't like it at all. Again, her first day was bad, but school doesn't get much better. Now, as Scout is walking home from school one day, she notices something in the Radley tree. Now, nobody will go near the Radley yard, but she sees something in this knothole in the tree, and she goes up near it, and it's a pack of gum. Now, remember, this is the 1930s. Everybody's really poor. Gum is a rare treat. So Scout takes it out, and she eats it. And she said she tasted it, and when she didn't die, she went ahead and ate the rest of it. Jem catches her eating it and tells her to spit it out immediately, and that's probably poison. But there's a chance that it could have been a present. A couple days go by, and the kids find something else in the tree. They find some old pennies in there, and they think it might be some kid's hiding place, but they don't really know. There's also the possibility that it could be a gift from someone. So now they've gotten gum and they've gotten these pennies. Now, summer comes around, the school year's ended, Dill comes back, and the kids make up this game where they're acting out the events of Boo Radley's life. So they pretend to stab each other in the leg because Boo Radley allegedly stabbed his father in the leg with a pair of scissors. Atticus catches them doing it, and he gets really upset because he doesn't want them mocking the Radley family any longer. In chapter 5, it's still summer, and the kids all decide to hang out with their neighbor, Miss Maudie. Now, Miss Maudie loves gardening. She's a super nice lady. She makes cakes for them, and she really just treats the kids with a lot of kindness, especially Scout, because the boys, Jem and Dill, kind of shun her sometimes and make fun of her for being a girl, and so Miss Maudie's like, us girls can stick together and we can hang out together. Miss Maudie starts talking to them about Boo Radley, and Scout asks her if she thinks if Boo Radley is still alive, and she says, I know Boo Radley's alive because I haven't seen his body carried out yet. So nobody ever sees him, but given the fact that his body hasn't been taken out, she thinks he's still alive. Miss Maudie keeps talking about the Radley family, and she talks about how religious the Radley dad is and Nathan Radley, and she says that they use the Bible to do harm to other people. And she says, the Bible in the hand of one man, it can be worse than a bottle of alcohol in the hands of, say, your father. What she means by that is alcohol can be bad for some people, but the Bible can be equally as bad. So she thinks that the Radley family use the Bible and use religion to treat others unkindly, and that he's too religious. Mr. Radley has also said that he thinks that Miss Maudie is a sinner because she spends too much time in her garden and not enough time in her house praying. And that is pretty much the end of chapter 5. The boys are unkind to her, and it ends with the kids playing the Boo Radley game again. Atticus gets really mad at him and says, you can't put anybody's life history on display for the edification of the neighborhood. And Jem feels really embarrassed because Jem